Hello, Packers fans, and welcome into PackersNews.com. I'm Cassidy Hill, joined by Ryan Wood here on a dreary day in Green Bay, Ryan. Kind of day that makes you want to either curl up and watch Harry Potter or discuss in depth the Packers' first preseason game against the San Francisco 49ers. So let's do the latter. As we said, Packers took on the 49ers last night in the first preseason game. I thought your tweet after the game was perfect. Final score, : doesn't matter. It's the preseason. You want to look at guys in these games. Who's some people that really stood out to you last night, Ryan?
I mean, Jordan Love, all eyes were on 10, and I didn't think he disappointed. I tweeted it after the game. I know Packers Twitter was down on him, but if you watch the game and not the box score, I don't really see how that's all that possible. Now, the third interception to Amari Rodgers, and Jordan Love made this point after the game. I thought it was a fair point. That play, even if two receivers bust their routes, that play doesn't need to end in an interception.
As Matt LaFleur said, they did, just for context.
Yeah, and it can end in an incompletion. The ball, he forced it in there. The ball was thrown behind. He could have, even to give Amari Rodgers a better chance at a reception, led him more. And at the very worst, it's an incompletion on a play that was going nowhere. Because when you've got two busted routes, the play's going nowhere. So that play, that's partially on Jordan Love. The first two picks, not at all on Jordan Love. The first one, he hits his tight end right in the hands. If it didn't hit him in the hands, it would have hit him in the face mask. Perfect pass. It's got to be caught. The second one, Romeo Doubs. He had a good start to his evening. He's had a great camp. You can't let the ball get wrestled away from you. You know who's the first that's going to tell you that is Romeo Doubs. So, yeah, I mean, you look at the box score, the three picks are what's going to stand out. But I thought if you looked at the field, you saw a very composed quarterback. It wasn't long ago that Steve Spagnuolo in Jordan Love's very first NFL start had him shaking like a leaf in the face of constant pressure. You saw a composed quarterback last night. You saw a quarterback that was confident in the pocket, let it rip, unlike what we've ever seen before. You saw a quarterback that showed more composure and poise, getting outside the pocket and making plays off schedule, which Matt LaFleur referred to, than what we've ever seen before. It was a really good step for him, the three interceptions notwithstanding. So now he's just got to build on that. But I thought he had a good night.
Let me ask you about the first interception in particular, because I think it brings up a good argument with Jordan Love. One of the things that it feels like coaches have really been trying to strike the balance with Love is the balance between putting the right touch on the ball and putting a little more power on the ball when one is necessary versus the other. Do you feel like that's one of those cases? I'm not saying it is, just playing devil's advocate. Do you feel like that interception was one of those cases where it was maybe too much force, not enough touch?
No, I think that interception was a play where this tight end needed to catch the football that hit him in the hand.
Bobbled it, yeah. Because it was in the perfect spot, like you said.
If it didn't hit him in the hands, it would have hit him in the face mask. You have to catch that pass. And Tyler Davis would be the first to tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's on the tight end. The second one, could Jordan Love had thrown a better ball? Sure.
A little more to the sideline?
Yeah. More outside. There's no reason that ball should have been picked. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's on the receiver. You can't let the ball get wrestled away from you when it hits your hands. It was in Romeo Doubs' hands. Mm-hmm. You can't. You got to eat that ball. You got to keep it. So the first two were on his targets. I thought a big positive in Jordan Love's night was that composure we talked about. After you throw three straight interceptions and each one gets progressively worse for you, and then he comes back and leads a 2-minute drill for a touchdown. Stood in the pocket, found Samori Toure open on not his first progression. I mean, he was 2-3 progressions and stood in the pocket and found an open receiver. And then he made a good ball to, back shoulder, the right ball to Danny Davis on the 33-yard touchdown. The first touchdown to Romeo Doubs, that's a play he has to make. I mean, you can't blow that now. It says something that, those easy ones, as Matt LaFleur said last night, you don't want to miss the layup, and he didn't miss the layup. He had a layup. He hit the layup. That's a good way to start. And then to come back from those three interceptions and lead the 2-minute drill and put the ball right where it needed to be to Danny Davis on the back shoulder. Mm-hmm. You want to see the guy make the plays that are there to be made. And Jordan Love did that.
I want to get into Samori Toure and Danny Davis here in just a minute since they're both sort of on the bubble. But let's talk about Romeo for a second. He started out hot, or actually, he had a drop, and then Jordan Love went back to him. He had that touchdown, which wasn't too surprising for those of us that have seen him in camp. Then, like you said, he gave up the interception that originally was called a completion. Kyle Shanahan challenged it. I guess everybody needs to practice in the preseason. He needed to practice throwing that red flag. And it worked out for him. But he had that interception, a couple of drops. Do you feel like this is something that can shake a rookie's confidence? Or the big place that he had, is that enough to remind him, like, okay, I can still do this, but the mistakes I made, this is where I learned. As Aaron Rodgers said this week, better to make these mistakes in August than September.
I think it gave him some film to work on. It gave him something to build on going into a second preseason game. For as good as camp has been, it wasn't a perfect night for Romeo Doubs, but I don't think his confidence is going to get shaken, at least in the pass game. I mean, I think the bigger concern right now is Romeo Doubs as a blocker. And part of his game that he's going to be asked to do as a receiver, and he's going to have to get better at, because there was a lot left on the field in terms of blocking, not just the drops. But Romeo Doubs, the thing that was most surprising to me, and you've seen it too, Cassie, he's such a natural catcher of the ball. In camp. I mean, his hands are so solid, and we just haven't seen those drops. So you wonder if there was a little bit of jitters there in the first preseason game. Right. But he still made plays. And, 3 catches, 45 yards. Came back from the bad drop on a slant and kind of bobbled the ball, but was able to hold on to it in traffic. He's going to be a player. We'll see where he develops, but he's going to be a part of this offense this season.
If you have any questions for Ryan or I, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll get to those here in just a couple of minutes. Before we go to the defensive side of the ball, Ryan, let's note a couple of guys on offense. First of all, Jordan Love could have had another interception, but Juwann Winfree, I still don't know how he pulled that in. It could be argued it was Juwann Winfree's fault in the first place. It was bobbled up. But he was able to pull in a pretty acrobatic catch. Another good night from Winfree. Samori and Danny Davis. Those are 2 guys that are arguably on the bubble, could find themselves on the practice squad. One of them maybe could take a 53 spot if Christian Watson starts the season on the PUP. How much did they sort of help themselves last night? Do you see either one of them having improved their stock any?
They didn't hurt themselves. I don't know how much they improved their stock. I mean, I see Danny Davis as a very ideal fit on the practice squad, and he certainly solidified that. I think Samori Toure is going to be on the bubble, and it's going to be more, the whole preseason body of work instead of just one game for him. He had a nice night for him. It's going to be special team.
Adding a little bit of that to his family night performance as well.
Yeah, but he's a 7th round pick. Right. He's get cut. He's going to have to do it all preseason. So, and it's going to be more about the special teams than what he does on offense. So, it's still early for him. He's made some plays. It hasn't been Romeo Doubs, but right. For a 7th round pick, he's coming to make plays. He has a chance to make the roster, but he's firmly on the bubble right now.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about Tyler Goodson and BJ Baylor, who both kind of, helped themselves to get on the practice squad as well last night. But let's fold that into Rebecca's question. Any thoughts on offensive line play?
I thought you saw an offensive line that is ahead in pass pro than it is in run blocking. It's an offensive line with a lot of athleticism, a lot of talented guys when it comes to pass blocking, but that they're light on the real beefy run you over type downhill blockers, and that's going to be interesting to see how this develops, because this offense is going to need its run game. With Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, that's where it's going to. Jordan Love wasn't sacked. They protected fairly well for Danny Etling. Truth be told, I was riding most of the second half, so didn't see much of Danny Etling, but he had a nice night for himself. I think the right side of this offensive line, kind of throw your hands up in a shrug emoji. I don't know how that's going to play out. It needs to get better, but when you don't get sacked and you keep your starting quarterback upright, some of that was Jordan Love too, being able to make plays outside the pocket. But it was a decent night from a pass pro standpoint. They played their starters, obviously, which Matt LaFleur said that they were going to do. Probably a good idea because you could look at it's a very young offensive line, even in the spots that we know are starters like Josh Myers in his second year and Josh Nyman, who's really only got a half year of left tackle experience under his belt. So they're going to get a lot of run in this preseason.
I'm going to build off Rebecca's question here as well and ask, speaking of the starters and the personnel, we had seen them sort of cross-training guys throughout a decent portion of camp, but it seemed like it was set last night. Do we feel like that's your starting five right now if we're going into week one?
I have no idea what's going to happen on the right side. Last night they went Jake Hansen at right guard and they went Royce Newman at right tackle. I think that it's very possible, if not likely, that you're going to see Royce Newman at right guard and Zach Tom, the rookie, at right tackle. If David Bakhtiari can't come back, which until you see him on the practice field, you can't assume that he is. Elton Jenkins the same way. So, yeah, I mean, you have to expect that this collection that they brought to San Francisco is what they're rolling into week one with. But how that configures on the right side, I think, is very much up in the air.
Let's go to the defensive line. More depth there than I think we kind of thought there would be heading into training camp. It feels like some of those second and third string guys, in my opinion, played a little better than I thought they would. What about you, Ryan?
On the defense side as a whole, the defensive line?
Defensive line.
No, I thought on paper going in that this is the deepest defensive line that they've had.
I guess
cover the team.
Yeah, deeper than I thought they would be heading into camp. They'd all had a really good camp and really kind of solidified that last night.
Yeah. They've. This is what the defensive line is supposed to. Remember day one, Aaron Rodgers said that he thought that the offense was going to take its lumps from this defense, especially up front.
Right.
Reason for that. This is the deepest defensive line that they've had in a long time, and it's been a thing that the Packers have tried for years to build and have been unsuccessful. And they find, a guy like Chris Slayton might just be a camp body, maybe a practice squad guy. He had a good night for himself. Right. I thought TJ Slayton looks lighter and quicker off the line than we saw him last year. Had some burst. He had a good night for himself. Obviously, Devontae Wyatt was unable to play for precautionary reasons. He was evaluated for a concussion this past week. Is not in the concussion protocol, but just for precautionary reasons. So you want to see him get back out on the field because these preseason snaps are going to be important for him as a first-round pick at a position where there's a steep transition from the college game to the NFL. But, yeah, I mean, you look, they got Kenny Clark, Dean Lowry, Jaron Reed, Devontae Wyatt, a first-round pick, TJ Slayton, who played some good snaps last season as a rookie. I mean, they go at least 5 deep and even more. It's a really deep defensive line.
I've heard coaches say before that the secret to building a good team is to start on the defensive line, and the Packers have started in a really good spot there with that unit this year. We got a question from Mike, and I'm going to get to it in just a second here, but let's hop to the back side of that defense. Safety. Dallin Levitt did go down with an injury last night. We don't know the extent of it yet. Matt LaFleur said he would update us on Dallin Levitt and Tipa on Sunday. We saw more Vernon Scott, Sean Davis. I'm trying to remember, was Vernon Scott in there? The safety unit, essentially. Is there concern there after having seen them in game reps with the second and third string guys?
Yeah, unlike the defensive line, the back end of this defense does not have depth. You saw that last night. The lack of depth behind your top 5 DBs. I mean, the starting line with your 3 corners and Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Rasul Douglas, and your back end with Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. I mean, the Packers feel really good with that quintet. But behind them, a 4th corner and a 3rd safety is wide open on down the depth chart. And you saw that last night with 2 explosive plays for touchdowns against Trey Lance. Dallin Levitt, give him credit for coming back from getting burnt on the touchdown on 3rd and 9, where you cannot get beat deep. He gives up a 76-yard touchdown, lets the guy run right past him. He came back from that to force the fumble, which was a good sign for him. And then obviously the injury, we'll have to see the extent of that. And then Rico Gafford, who's having himself a good camp. I mean, all you need to know about Rico Gafford's chances of making the 53 is that he was the first kick returner last night. I mean, he's right there, really on the right side of the bubble, but he bites on a post corner, gives up the seam, and gets burned on a touchdown. There's It's sparse depth in the secondary, and there, this is going to be an important preseason to be able to try to develop some of that depth and give these guys some experience, because they just don't have a lot of guys that played all that much behind that top five.
Really good question here from Mike. So I'm going to pop it up on the screen. 2 biggest surprises. What player performed better than expected and which player didn't perform as expected?
Could almost say the biggest surprise for me was Romeo Doubs with the drops. I didn't see that coming, because he's caught the ball so solidly. He's got strong and soft hands. He's a natural hands catcher. So the biggest surprise that I had all night was the wide open drop, which, it's going to happen. Let's not, let's pump the brakes on saying it's a problem, because it hasn't been a problem. But if you're asking me what I was surprised about, that would certainly be it. Someone that performed better than expected. I hate to take the easy answer, but Jordan Love set a very low bar for himself last year. And so it wasn't all that hard to clear that bar, but I thought he cleared that bar by several levels. I thought he was a lot better than what we've seen. And so that was a strong start for him.
We're going to wrap up here with Rebecca's question, because we'd be remiss if we didn't mention this. She said, looked like Amari Rodgers was more decisive on teams than last year. Is he likely to be number 1 punt and kick returner? He did look more decisive and faster.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'd say yes, but he looked quicker. Not just on the 50-yarder where he got leveled by Rashawn Gary. Hilarious. Fortunately for him, he's okay. Right? Taking a shot at Rashawn Gary is not for the faint of heart.
No, he laid there for a minute too.
You're like, oh boy, that's he's having a good camp, and that's exactly what you need. Friendly on friendly. A celebratory bump and you get concussed or something. That would have been so on brand for how much bad luck he's had as a rookie into this point. But he popped right back up, and then he had the touchdown where he hit a corner and made 2 guys miss with his speed. We didn't see
Clemson Amari Rodgers.
Yeah, what?
Looked like Clemson Amari Rodgers.
Exactly. We didn't see that all last year, and that he was heavier, he was slower. He's leaner and faster now. And yeah, he had a really good night for himself, which really punctuated what has been a really solid camp so far.
Yeah. So good to see him come along, because I know they really believed in him and didn't want to give up on him, and it seems to be paying off. Ryan, I'm going to let you go enjoy your rainy Saturday here in Green Bay.
It's not like California out there, I'll tell you that.
California love, and no, it's not. Like I said, it's a perfect day to curl up and watch Harry Potter, or another slate of preseason games, which are starting here in 8 minutes.
Are they?
Anyways, like I said, go enjoy your Saturday. We will be back at Lambeau tomorrow for practice. I believe tomorrow's is a smaller closed practice. And then the Saints come into town. Saints come marching in for joint practices on Tuesday and Wednesday. So that's going to be exciting. I'm sure tensions will be a little high. So that'll be fun. And we will have you fully covered there. Ryan, I'll let you leave with any final thoughts.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Matt LaFleur made a point last night that the Saints laid one on them last year. And it's just joint practices and a preseason game.
Right.
Memories are long in this league, so it's going to be chippy. Yeah. It's very interesting to see if tempers flare. It's going to be a very intense couple days here.
Where are you setting the over-under on how long into the first practice when the first fight happens?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll never forget the first joint practice that Matt LaFleur had back in 2019 when a Texan safety laid out just total cheap shot on Jay Sternberger, the former Packers tight end. And after that, it was like, they wanted a battle. The safety was not invited back to practice the next day. Good everyone on both sides. So that's what you want to not see, is those type of cheap shots. And we'll see if those happen. But so long as that doesn't happen, it can get control. But all it takes is one guy, one knucklehead on either side trying to make a play, a name for himself, and send a statement, and all bets are off after that.
Right. Twitterverse has their going bets right now on Trevor Penning being the one to start the first fight. So we will see what happens on Tuesday. Like I said, we'll be there to cover it for you all. Full coverage on PackersNews.com. We'll see you then. Thanks, guys.